Hey guys, Alan from V Expressions here. Today we're going to go over how to get your brand new expansion pack from us to your TD-27. Let's get started. So if you're brand new to the TD-27, there's a couple things you're going to want to do first. After you've set up your kit, if you've been tinkering with it, you're going to want to save some pad settings, some kit settings, so forth and so on. If you haven't done any of this, you have an SD card in your hand and you're ready to start from scratch, first thing you should do is probably format the SD card. It will check and make sure the card's okay, and it will also produce the folders that you're going to need for this demo and the QuickStart to get your stuff into the module. Second, if you have done your pad settings, which means you've gone in and made sure you chose the correct pad for your setup, and you have made any kit tweaks whatsoever, or even loaded some WAV files for samples, you're going to want to save those as well. So you'll do a backup for that. The backup will be placed in your backup folder, and I'm going to show you where that is in just a moment. So make sure you've done those two things. Obviously, if you've done a backup, then you don't need to do the format. You'll just erase whatever you already have. So let's get started with our download, and I'll show you what comes in your zip file. So today I'm going to use Reality for the TD-27, a brand new pack that's coming out soon for the TD-27 from us. Inside that, let's take a look. It comes with the README, which is also known as the owner's manual. It has the QuickStart guide, which is actually inside the README, and then it has a README first PDF. I highly suggest reading the README first, either text or PDF, because there are some do's and don'ts in there, some warnings, things to be aware of as far as like naming files, placement of files, and so forth and so on. Very important information, and it'll save you an email to me and time waiting for me to reply. Inside this zip file is also a folder called Roland. Before I go into this and show you the folder layout of what your module does and what we send you, I will say that Chris sometimes will do things a little differently than I do. He'll put the main backup file right here in the root directory next to all these PDFs, and then sometimes he'll just supply a kit folder separate. I like to provide the actual Roland folder tree so that you can match it up to your SD card and you can see how it works. Either way, you'll be able to learn from this video how to place the files where you need them. Inside this Roland folder is a TD-27 folder. Inside that folder is a backup folder and a kit folder. Obviously, inside each one of those, there's a backup file inside the backup folder. This is your actual expansion. And then inside the kit folder is individual kit files if you wish to import or load individual kits. Now, why would somebody want to load the individual kits? If you've got pad tweaks that you want to keep, if you just chose your pads and it was that simple, you didn't make any changes, that's fine. You're going to have to do that if you load the full backup. If you went in and tweaked individual pads really to a fine detail, then you're probably going to want to keep all that information so you don't have to put it back in there again. This is where you would use the individual kits. You would load those individually, and they will leave your pad settings and everything alone. So that's the breakdown of the folder, how it works in our zip file, and actually how it works also in the SD card. So speaking of which, let me go ahead and open up my SD card here on the right side. And you'll see I have some folders here as well. I've done obviously a lot of backups, so I have some folders that the module has created for me. It creates, during the formatting, it creates an import folder for you to put WAV files or samples that you're going to put into your module if you want to. It creates a rec folder. This folder actually might not be created until you do a recording, but that's where any recordings that you do in the module will be placed. And then finally, you see the Roland folder that we just went over in the zip folder. Inside that is the 27. I also use this card for the 50. And then there's the backup and the kit folders as we expected. So let's go back to the beginning and start from scratch. In our zip folder, we're going to go into the Roland folder, TD-27, and backup. This is our backup expansion. On our SD card, we're going to do the exact same thing. Go into Roland, TD-27, backup. And here's my backups that I personally have. By the way, I always suggest if you save a personal backup, whether it be every day, once a month, once a week, whatever, use the first bank. It's much easier without having to do a lot of scrolling to find your personal backup all the time. I just save it to 001. I did this on purpose so we would have a dilemma to deal with. If I were to take this backup file from our zip folder over to the backup folder on our card, obviously it's going to tell me I have one already, and it's going to ask, do I want to replace that? If you have a personal backup that has data you don't want to lose, obviously you're going to say, no, skip this file. I don't want to do that. So how do we deal with that dilemma? Easy. We're going to drag this folder out to our desktop. Not that one, this one. The desktop, and we're going to rename it. However, when I say rename, I use that loosely. We are actually going to renumber. You want to keep that file name exactly the way it is, but just change the number. So I'm going to look here on my SD card to see what I have. I have 1, 3, 4, and 5. Well, I don't want to do a lot of scrolling, so let's make this number 2. All I'm going to do is change that 5 to a 2. Keep all the zeros. Keep the rest of the name the exact same way it is. You can do the 00 whatever up to 099, I believe it is, maybe 100. But basically, you do not want to do anything other than that. You don't want to just change 001 to 1. You want the 00 and a number, or you want 0 whatever, 36, 99, whatever you want to use. Just remember, if your module's not reading it, that's why. So I'm changing it to a 2, and I'm going to drag that over to my SD card. And now you'll see I have a 2 right there. I also still have my 1, 3, 4, and 5. So I'm done with the backup. If I want to use the individual kit files, I would go back over to my zip file to the 27 folder. I would go to the kit folder. There's my kit files. I will come to my SD card and check to see if I have any kit files. And I do. So here's where I would ask myself, are those my kits? Did I make those? Do I want to save them? You may want to renumber them. Obviously, you're not going to have 60 like I do, because that's these 60 over here on the left. So let's say I don't have any. I'll delete those real quick off my SD card. Now I can copy all these over there. If you had some, you would just want to renumber them so they don't get overwritten. Most people are only going to have a handful anyway. So another way you can copy this is go back to the 27 folder. If you do or do not have this folder, you actually can just drag this kit folder over here like that. It will populate that folder with all those kit files, and you're ready to go. Just to remind you, like I said, the one thing different that Chris does is he has his kit folder here in the root directory, and sometimes his main TDO back up here. You would do the exact same thing. So if there's a TDO here from Chris like that, you would just go into your SD card, Roland, TD-27, backup, and you would copy this over there. And if this was the kit folder here, you would just, same thing, just copy it over to the kits. It's really simple. So let's go ahead and close this and get out of this and head to our module and get them input. All right, I'm at the kit. I have my SD card in the module and I'm ready to go. First thing we're going to do is click System. We're going to go over to SD card to the right, enter. We're going to go to the right to load, enter. Here's where we would choose whether we want samples and what backup we're loading. So in reality, in the expansion reality, I do not have any samples, so you cannot turn this on or off. If you have a backup chosen here that has samples, then you will. So for instance, if you have Chris's expansion and you want to load the samples, you can. Keep in mind, if you load the entire backup, it overwrites pad settings. It will overwrite the user samples if you're loading samples, and so forth, so on. I'll get into the one kit load in just a moment. Let me go ahead and finish with this. So I want to load reality. I have it in bank number 1. At the PC, if you put it in a different position or you kept it at number 5 from our zip file, then you'll want to choose number 5 here. Just scroll to that number and you'll see it. Once again, you can't turn on the samples for reality. I'll hit load. I'll go to the right and hit OK and enter. Processing will take about, 5 seconds, 10 seconds at the most. With samples, it'll take considerably longer, I will say that. So let's go ahead and do the one kit load. Again, you want to do one kit load if you want to keep your pad settings. So speaking of pad settings, let's show you how to change that and then resave your backup. Go into System, go over to Trigger, hit Enter. Bank is fine, hit Enter, and you're going to see all your pads laid out here. Now, you want to tap each pad, go through each pad individually, and you want to check to make sure that what it says on the screen is what you have. This is how you'll ensure that your volumes are correct, your dynamics are correct, and so forth and so on. Once you've done that, you want to calibrate your hi-hat. Your Roland manual will tell you how to do that. Once you've done all this, you can hit drum set to get out of it. By the way, I guess I should show you how to do one of those. So I'll click my bass drum up here. If I want to change that, hit parameter, and then you'll scroll and change it right there. And then once you're done, just hit drum kit to get out of that. If you've changed any pad settings after loading our expansions, I highly suggest you resave the expansion. So let me show you how. System, go back to SD card, hit enter, go back to save, hit enter. Then you want to do with or without samples. That's up to you. If you want to save the Roland user samples with the reality, that's up to you. It makes the file bigger. If you have Chris's kits on there, you want to save the samples as well, obviously. If you have any user samples you want to save, check the samples. If you don't, you can turn that off. For reality, I don't have any, so I'm just going to turn that off. And I would change this to a different backup, obviously, or I can overwrite the original. That's fine too. I'll go ahead and save it here to the backup number 2. Hit save. You have an option here to name the file. I'll let you do that if you want. When you're done, hit execute. Go to the right for OK and hit enter, and it'll save it. Now you've saved your pad settings that you changed and any user samples you wanted to add. And to get back out of this, click Drum Kit. So now let's talk about the one kit save, or one kit load, sorry. If you had pad settings already, and you just want to do single kit loading so that you can keep your pads set up. If you do detail trigger settings, this is for you. This is for you. If you have user samples you've put into the module, you don't want to lose those. This is for you. So what you're going to want to do is go to System, SD card is fine. We're going to go down and over to one kit load, enter. And then if you have Chris's kits that have samples, you would check the samples here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to load one from Reality, the John Bonham kit. Doesn't have any samples. I'm going to go down to the user space. I'm going to move it all the way to the end here to 100. I'm going to load it. Click right for OK and hit enter. It'll come up at that kit that you just loaded, which is 100 John Bonham. I have it there, and it's ready to go. Now, if you have your pad settings that you have before our expansion, you have to do that with every single kit. You'll either want to choose to overwrite all the Roland kits and just do it, 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3 kits if you want to do it like that. Or you can get rid of the Roland kits you don't want and fill in the gaps or fill in the space at the end where the user kits are, whatever you want to do. It's totally up to you. That's it for this tutorial. I hope I helped. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, or you can drop me an email, but I highly suggest you read the manual because your answers are going to be in there. I'll see you next time. Take care.